to jump on. There we go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining in the Island Viper and Retail Viper. We may have a guest joining us here in a bit, but we wanted to go ahead and do a post Winterfest 5 live stream and talk about the show a little bit, talk about GiJoe, the Energon universe, GiJoe number 3. It's been out for a little bit. I'm sure that we both read it. I've got it pulled up here on my phone. We can openly talk about it now. Number 4 will be coming out again. These are a whole different universe. It's not the regular ARAH type universe. It's a combined Energon universe with Transformers, GiJoe, Void Rivals, a couple other titles. There's been the Origin mini-series titles for some of the GiJoe characters. But number 3 starts off with showing Clutch, who we know from the number 2 issue, kind of disappeared there. And Clutch disguised himself as a Viper.
Man, I thought that was so cool. We kind of joked the last time we talked about the day that rock and roll died.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't say that phrase enough, I guess. Like,
right.
Literally. And then, and then the surprise with Clutch, and then my favorite part of number 3, besides Stalker just being a complete badass and kind of squashing that fight that was going on with Risk and Duke, was when Clutch is kind of in the room with Destro and Cobra Commander, and Cobra Commander's just kind of like talking, and he's like, "Someone here is not who they say they are," and he's looking right at Clutch, and you're like, "Oh, he's so dead." And then he grabs this guy behind him and throws him down. And the thing I liked about that was a neat swerve, because you thought, oh, Clutch is dead meat. But then the nice little swerve was you find out that someone from Cobra Law, it's a Cobra Law assassin. And Cobra Commander is very careful to hide that from the others, because the guy's face starts to peel off. Because I guess whatever organic technology they use to have skin suits or whatever, because like in the Cobra Commander, he had Nemesis Enforcer.
The same thing that Nemesis was using.
And I thought that was so cool, and how he just was kind of talking smack to him and threw him in that pit of vipers, a literal pit of vipers. I was like, that is Cobra Commander. And it's like, he's got, you got Cobra. He's got to, kind of keep Destro on a leash and not too close to bite him, so to speak. And then he's got to worry about Cobra Lawson and people. And he was just on it, man. I loved it.
The page where that assassin jumps up and he's going to try and stab Cobra Commander, and you see Cobra Commander just reach out and grab him by the throat, and that just shows some of the brutality that's going into this character, and the fact that he has the is it Insecticons that he modified for the hand.
I was a little unclear on that, because I wasn't sure. Did he have like an actual robot hand, or was it a glove from a while back?
It's like technology that is encasing his hand.
Okay, and then I noticed the bugs, which obviously
they turned into that.
Yeah, that would be the Insecticons, which I thought that was pretty cool. I assume that's what that would be. I thought that was
the right
neat.
Size. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. In the cartoon, those things are pretty damn big. They were like big as a car.
Yeah.
Or, I guess if you don't, take care of your bug problem, that's what happens. But certain places, that whole sequence was really, really cool, and I kind of like it that I was listening to a reviewer talk about it, and he's saying the Joes are really kind of put back on their heels, and I think that's kind of fun, because it's like, I don't see any way for them to beat Cobra right now. And we even got to the Transformers and them being a menace, or the Decepticons rather. So it's like they're really back on their heels, which makes it more fun, because there's more stakes, and it's more of a, I don't want to say risk, because that's a character, but it makes it more risky for our heroes to try to get through that. And, like, how are they going to overcome this? So it just makes it the journey a little bit more sweeter, I guess.
It's like we got David here. He's ready to come in on the stage.
Hello.
Hey, David, how are you?
What's up?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're
good.
talking about issue number 3 right now.
Issue 3, there it is.
Yes,
I got
sir.
the Finch variant.
It's a good cover.
This was a bit of an interesting issue.
Oh yeah, it is, definitely. We were just getting through part of it, talking about the conflict between Risk and Duke, and what exactly Cobra Commander was using as the robot hand. And early on in the, I believe it was in the Cobra Commander comic, right, where he changed the Insecticons to like a glove, like a gauntlet.
That sounds about right.
Yep.
But
well, if you remember too, when he fought Nemesis Enforcer, he had his hand up, and I thought he shot him with something, almost like a look up repulsor.
yeah,
How like Tony Stark got the
was
little
an energy blast.
yeah.
From him. Like he has somehow bonded with those Decepticons.
Terry, I really like your theory from the other week about somebody using the brainwave scanner to control the bats. I think that's
where we're going to go with that, man.
And then I almost feel like, because somebody said, how's Baroness going to go bad and all that? And I was like, well, what if, I said after we had talked, I was like, what if she doesn't go bad? What if like somehow her and Chameleon get their bodies switched? And so Baroness is really Chameleon, and then Chameleon's the Baron. You know, that so like they're in different bodies, but still on the same team or whatever, or same respective teams.
Now that's a different idea. Maybe that is what could happen.
Oh, excuse me, Dan. One of the weird things is I mentioned on a video that I posted a while ago that I was sick and tired of the brainwave scanner.
I am too.
And then somebody told me, Dave, the irony of that comment, because the next issue 3, spoiler alert, the brainwave scanner shows up. I was like, what the F? And I was like, damn.
Well, I've got a buddy that works with me sometimes, and he was talking about, I think I briefly mentioned it last time, how he hates the brainwave scanner. And
I don't
it's like,
hate it, but it's been overused. Larry uses it too much.
If you read the later issues of Real American Hero, the many times that Zartan, Storm Shadow, and even Baroness were put in that thing to flip flop their sides.
Yeah,
it's like you just can't. It's silly.
It's a MacGuffin that's been overused, and now they've ruined it. It was cool in the first 100 issues. It appeared maybe a few times for different things, like they used it as part of the Serpentor storyline. They used it for, obviously, the whole thing with Snake Eyes a couple of times. But then when they just, no matter who it is, they stick it in, it loses its heaviness, its importance. I don't know.
Are you, David, are you reading the Real American Hero continuation?
Yes, I am. I've enjoyed that. I have. But
I feel like since he went to Skybound, it's gotten 1,000 times better.
Oh, well.
Really?
The funny thing about it is, I'm going to preface this because I'm trying to get Larry Hama on an interview, so I got to be careful what I say. So, prior to 300, the last 50 issues, it felt like it was just like going along, But when they switched over and they had that really cool cliffhanger on issue 300, you're like, holy crap. And then we had a whole year to wait as to find out what was going to happen. And you're like, wow, look at this. And then it took a couple issues to resolve that cliffhanger, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then it went into the World War III in Springfield, and it's been very cool. They're involving zombies, they're involving androids, AI, they're involving the Dreadnoks, they're involving the Iron Grenadiers, ninjas, the Arashikage. It's like everybody and their uncle and brother that's a G.I. Joe faction is involved in this war. It has been so good.
That seems like something I would probably be more interested in reading. I've slowly been working my way through the Real American Hero line, the Marvel run, and I'm just gonna be honest. Like, some of it's boring. Some of it's been very boring to me.
I would say this, like the original Marvel series. I've got my first comic in we'll just say the modern age I got when I was a kid was issue 18, and it's pretty action packed. And but I felt like And I told Larry this one time when he came to our shop, and he and I spent the day together. I actually told him that I thought that the guy that played J.R. Ewing, Larry Hagman, on Dallas, was the guy that wrote G.I. Joe. And when my granny told me that they were two different guys, I'm really upset. But I told him, I said, he would look super good with a Stetson on. I'm just saying, make some oil deals. But he thought that was funny. So it seemed like I noticed that the way he would pattern his story arcs, it was almost like these nighttime soaps. Like you'd have your season premiere, and you'd have this story arc's going to go all the way to the season finale. This is going to go right before Christmas. This is like in between, and then you'd repeat that, and you'd still have threads. It felt like around whenever Destro shows up in the book, I think it's like issue 14, 16, something like that. It really amps up, and then we start to get that kind of continuous story. And then, because like when you get into like the whole thing with Ripcord and Bongo the Bear, and
that's
then
like one of my favorite story arcs.
Professor Apple.
I love Candy Appel and her father and that whole thing with Ripcord. That made me a huge Ripcord fan.
Oh, big time.
Bongo is like my favorite ancillary character to this day.
And like I felt like a lot of that stuff, like the whole stuff, like we meet the Softmaster, and then like 12 issues later or 14 issues later, Softmaster, Candy, and Billy are in the car, and get boom, and it's just like, oh man, it felt like are you sure this isn't JR writing this book, because this feels like a nighttime soap, like the way they do their pacing. And I mean, and but when you get later into the run, it kind of devolves from that, but
I think
it's still
because
pretty
they were
good.
introducing too many toys, and it was becoming more increasingly difficult for Larry to try to weave in all these new characters and new toys and concepts. It did become a toy property towards the end there.
Well, yeah, it had to be an advertisement for the toy.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, it was. And
well,
he was having a difficult time.
I think that because it's Larry's the same guy.
Yeah.
But like the IDW run compared to the Skybound run, and I think it's the difference in the companies, because Larry's still Larry.
Yeah, it's still Larry.
But he's getting like support. He's getting what he needs to do a good job. I'll just say that.
Yes,
because you can sense it, and it's really because people that were reading it, like I have my best friend quit. They didn't want to read it anymore because he just was. Some of Larry's comments on social media would kind of rub him the wrong way, and but I noticed even all that's kind of like trailed off. Like, hey, let's not alienate half our fans. Let's just be GI Joe. But even the writing,
even then, Dan, I don't read GI Joe because of Larry's personal political views. I read it because it's G.I. Joe.
Exactly.
He's done a great job, and he got me into comics, and he helped me read when I was a young kid and learn to read. That's why I'm reading G.I. Joe.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All that other stuff, that's not even part of this. Yeah, I know all that, but I separate the two things.
Well,
and I think the coloring and the art on the current Larry series is phenomenal. The people they've gotten, Moynihan, Pelletier, all these guys that are doing it, Andy Kubert doing covers, they are the highest cream of the crop you can get in comics right now. They are incredible creators.
Well, the reason I brought up the one thing is the retailer, I have to listen to that from customers. Because I agree, I'm going to read it no matter what. He could do a whole book like I hate Dan Thompson, and I would like, I hate me too. I want to keep reading it. But like as a retailer, I have to hear that because the customers see that, and then I'm the one that has to listen to it, and then it doesn't affect Larry's pocketbook; it affects mine because then I'm not buying these anymore. But that's my subscription on that book has gone up. It's probably almost doubled. Which
I was
good.
just at my LCS getting this issue 3 this past week, and they say that's one of their highest selling comics. That's why they keep selling out. I was trying to get the A variant to go with my other A variants, and they sold out of it. And I was like, what? What happened? This is because G.I. Joe is selling extremely well for us, and we sold out of that variant.
Message me your address, and I'll send you an A cover if you want.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, because we over order on those. Because I think it was thank God I ordered heavy on Void Rivals because I didn't know about the secret until the week before.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, oh, I ordered enough. I ordered because people are calling and adding Void Rivals. And
talking about Void Rivals, I just read the latest issue of Void Rivals, and I'm not sure how to say the girl's name. Salila.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Her coming up upon Zerta Trion's body, and at the end of it, the awakening. That was really, really cool to me.
I tell you, man.
I like Void Rivals. I like Void Rivals. It's like kind of like a Romeo and Juliet in space. That's how I equate it. But add Transformers and add guns and sci-fi and lasers and ships and all this. But that's the you can boil it down to Romeo and Juliet in space. It's great.
Who's the sucksoid in Romeo and Juliet then? What character is he? I love him. Like, he's such an offshoot character I barely remember from the cartoon. And like, I'm like, oh man, poor Sucksoid. What's going on with him? But no, I think it's Robert Kirkman's crushing that book, man. It's so good.
Well, aside from fantasizing about his non-existent wife and kids.
Yeah, that's a little on the creepy side. But you know,
I've got a family to feed.
Can we go back to issue 3 again? I want to touch on something.
Yeah.
You were mentioning the old Larry Hama series, A Real American Hero from the 80s. There was that one arc where they had to like mow the lawn with GiJoe characters, and they killed like dozen characters.
Oh,
off.
Yeah.
And so they just did something not quite as bad with a major character in GiJoe issue 2.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that. They killed Rock and Roll.
Oh, you're going to spoil it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so there was a little bit of an impact in issue 3 to that plot point. And I liked how that was handled, because in war, there's death. And in war, you have to accept that that's a possibility.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think they handled it really interestingly in issue 3. What did you guys think about that?
I liked it. I liked how what was it? Risk called him heavy metal by mistake.
Yeah.
And Duke just flew off the handle. Yeah. And then it was I love Stalker is one of my favorite characters, and I just love how he threw the knife and just like enough, and like kind of got him like, all right, we got to get on the same side here. And I like how Colonel Hawk, like, what was it, Baroness, like, are you gonna let him do that? And he's like, it's good for morale or something, and let him team build there for a minute, and they just beating the hell out of each other. But I was telling Terry before you came on, there was a reviewer that was talking about issue 2 and 3, and how he loved it, and how it's one of the best comics out there. And he made the point that like the Joes are really set back on their heels right now. And I was just like,
yep.
As I'm reading it, I'm like, I don't see them beating Cobra anytime soon. And we haven't even gotten into the Decepticons trashing, when they get unified, what's going to happen then,
But that's what makes gripping story
exactly
and gripping comics, because how we know they're the good guys. They're going to come out of this and they're going to win. But how it really looks difficult for them, and I like that.
As long as they don't kill Stalker.
Unless they don't come out of it and they don't win.
That would be terrible. I mean, if that happened, the whole thing would crash.
You know what? I'll be honest though. If like Cobra won and Cobra's fighting the Transformers, that might, it's different. Yeah. Because I really love this Cobra Commander. He is amazing. And we were talking about how I was telling Terry, I thought it was so cool. He's looking straight at Clutch, and he's like, "Someone here is not who they say they are."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh no, they're gonna mess my boy up." And then he just does this, grabs the guy, throws him down, and then you see the guy's face start to peel off, and he hides that from the others because they have no idea about Cobra Law. Only Cobra Commander.
They don't even know what Cobra Commander is. Which, I mean, he's a human that ended up in Cobra Law.
Yeah, I'd love to see an origin story on that. Maybe
we'll see it. I'm sure down the road we'll get it.
Maybe his parents crashed in wherever Cobra Law is, and
I think he sought them out. I think that he found them and sought them out.
I think the Commander's just a fantastic character,
These
That's
versions of these characters, they have the essence of their origin characters, but they have new edges. All of them have new edges that we've never seen, and that's the quality of the writing. That's the quality of
absolutely
the Skybound team that they've put together. I think it's just phenomenal. It really is.
I just love that they didn't announce it when they first got the license. It was a secret. It gets kind of announced in Void Rivals #1. The Transformers #2 was like, I think, one of the best comics. With Optimus Prime stepping on the deer, like that was, and he's like, "What have I done?" And then when well, I guess it's been several issues now. When Spike gets shot, and he's holding Spike in one hand and sees the deer, and he's in the other, and he's like, "You will not die," and gets him to a hospital, defends the hospital. And that just was like amazing. That to me is Optimus Prime.
This
and I feel like
is the best Transformers I've read in decades. And nothing against Simon Furman and some of these others, but this is such gripping storytelling. It is great.
I tell you, the IDW series, when it was 2 books, Robots, it was they did the ongoing that ended like in the 20s or 30s, and then they started Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye.
Yeah.
I thought all that was really great. And then like for some reason they stopped those books at like issue 54 or 55, and then launched it as Optimus Prime and then Transformers Lost Light. And it like, well, where's Megatron at? He was an Autobot, and then it just was jarring, so jarring. And then on top of that, they tried to throw in, here's Robin the Space Knight killing people. We're fighting G.I. Joe and
I think because IDW was so focused on sales, I think their mindset was in the wrong place. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with looking at sales, because comics today are doing such bad numbers, like in the 30,000s, where 10 years ago, they're 80, 90, 100,000 almost on any given title. Wonder Woman or Thor or whatever was doing 100,000. But now everything's like in the 30s and 36,000 or whatever. G.I. Joe and a few other books have broken the 100,000 mark again.
Dude, I've seen Skybound posting several times about how G.I. Joe's been breaking records for them.
Well, here's the thing, too. Here's the thing, too.
But that's what IDW's mindset, I believe, at that point was. And they weren't putting the writing, they weren't putting the development of these characters first. I'm not saying they weren't doing that 100%, because there were some good arcs of characters, Windblade and Optimus and a couple of things here and there. But overall, it wasn't what Skybound. They are putting character first, they're putting story first, and they're giving these characters different sides, kind of like those Transformer guys with the 5 faces or whatever.
Oh, Quintessons, yeah.
They're like that. The characters, we're seeing faces and sides that we've never seen to these characters, but it makes sense for the characters. It is very good writing.
I always have to use this example about Michael Jordan. Like, Michael Jordan arguably is one of the best, if not the best, basketball player ever to play the game in the NBA. He didn't do it for the money. No. He did it because it was a gift he had, an ability that he honed. But because he did it for the right reason, the money came. Because he was actually very low paid up until his last year. He got his contract renewed. It was like 30. They finally got 30 million. Where like guys starting in the run proven were getting that. So I equate this to what you're saying. Like IDW was focused on certain things. They weren't putting out the best product. I think when you put out the best product and you put your heart and soul into it, then the money follows. And that's what's going on with Skybound, because they're putting in the work. And I just love that, like, Joshua Williams talks about, he's got 50 issues planned out. He's all on board with G.I. Joe. And I know a lot of people weren't as keen on the Scarlet series, and they weren't Destro to a lesser extent. And I think that's because he didn't write those, because he was so busy writing the G.I. Joe, getting G.I. Joe ready. But they're still good. They're still good, But yeah, I think that they're doing it right, and by doing it right, they're breaking records and making money. And all power, much success to them, because that's what it's supposed to be. Because like if Marvel would learn that lesson, Marvel's numbers would be way up there. DC's starting to learn it, because you got Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb coming back to Hush, or Batman for Hush too. Absolute Batman's breaking records.
I don't know about things like that though, Dan, because they tried doing this with Frank Miller. Sometimes you can't go back. You can't go back and try to get that same feeling, like Dark Knight Returns. He did, 3 Dark Knight Returns? I'm like, I don't think it was as good as the original. And I don't think Hutch is going to be as good. I think Long Halloween has done it because of the writing was first. Jeff Loeb doing the writing and making sure that he had a good story first and not, trying to capture what they did with the original 2 Long Halloweens.
I don't think
they're doing it as a publicity stunt, and I don't think that's the way to do it.
I'm not really that concerned about the Hush storyline. I'm just more concerned about someone writing Batman that understands Batman, because the last several guys, I can't read it. Like, he's getting lectured by sidekicks every issue, getting rescued by Catwoman or Poison Ivy or Harley Quinn every issue, where it's like, why is he even Batman?
I've never been a Batman fan.
And it's just like, it's really turned me off to it.
Some of the miniseries that they've been doing have been really, really good. I read a lot of those miniseries and I'm like, this is Batman. Like, there's the Black Label miniseries, the Gargoyle.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal miniseries.
Have you read Absolute Batman yet?
Yes.
I'm caught up on that and I love it. I think it's different, but it feels like Batman, you know? And it's kind of the same thing, like with a Captain America or a Punisher even. Yeah. Like, to me, Punisher's the easiest character to write. You got a guy in a black suit with a white skull with his hair slicked back killing mobsters and
they ruined
criminals.
They ruined
and they seem to mess that up.
That was my second comic that I ever got into after GiJoe was Punisher, and that says a lot about me, probably more than it does comics. But then Nam was after that. But Punisher was always one of my all-time favorite characters, and Marvel ruined that character. Once they took his logo off and they replaced it with a devil or whatever it was, they ruined it.
It gets worse because
changing a character to expand the comic and try to move it forward and change it a little bit to develop some interest and stuff. But they ruined Punisher. Now I have no interest in Punisher.
Yeah, there was a series that they did. It ended when they did the whole Hickman Secret Wars and the Battle World stuff. It ended when that started.
Yeah.
And it ran about 30 issues, and I, for the life of me, can't remember the writer or the artist, but it was the closest it felt to the Punisher that you're talking about, the good Punisher. Yeah. Like, he was taking his time. He was going after the cartel. He had like some SHIELD agents tracking him down, and it gets like, there's no reprints of it. I can never find it for graphic novel to order for people. It's all the this Jason Aaron nonsense where he like his wife came back and said he's a terrible person and he was a serial killer when he was a kid or something. I'm like, no one wants to read that.
Yeah.
Like, what is it was I would say beautiful story because it's a tragic story, but it was a story that, this guy went and fought in the war, came back, was a cop, realized the system's broken, got out of that, family gets killed. And then he's like, I got to do my thing, and
all of that was intentional. They destroyed the character on purpose.
Oh yeah,
because the symbol was adopted by I'll be very delicate about this.
No, there's no need to be delicate. Just out with it.
They absconded with the logo, a terrorist organization, and is using it, and they're using it to kill people in other countries and threatening people and trying to use them to get money out of the United States.
The reason they did that was because certain U.S. military groups had adopted the logo and police were using the logo.
Yeah,
and it was such a hard stance of the guy who created it was not a fan of police. The Punisher hates police. And it was all because of those groups that had adopted that logo. I kind of agree with all of that. And that those groups should not be using the Punisher logo. It's a bad look on those groups. And it's, that's just not what the Punisher is.
Well, see, though, but at the same time, the guy that technically created him barely had anything to do with it. It was Mike Barron, and Chuck Dixon were more refined who he was and created who he is, like the classic Punisher. And Mike Barron had no problem with it, and nor did Chuck Dixon. but I think it became like a political thing, and then like
it did.
the QAnon stuff would have the Punisher in it, and then law enforcement. And then it was cool not to like law enforcement and the military and all that. Or I don't say cool because I don't think it's cool, but you know what I mean. Like it was the trendy thing to like hate on that, and
I think as I don't know if it's a weakness of us as human beings that we try to equate fantasy and we try to make it into reality. The whole thing with that guy that was Joker in the movie theater, that's why no one likes the Joker anymore, because of what happened with that guy. And that's what's going on with the Punisher. And I'm like, this was meant as escapism, entertainment, and we brought it into the real world, and it's not entertainment anymore, and it ruined it all.
But the idea that the Punisher is basically the antithesis of all of that stuff, like I don't understand why those groups would adopt that logo or use it for whatever reason, because I mean that goes against everything that those groups stand for. The Punisher is a vigilante. He is a murderer, flat out.
Yeah.
He is judge, jury, and executioner.
Yep.
And that's not what those groups are supposed to stand for.
That's a good point.
That's why it bothers me whenever I see police officers with a Punisher logo on their vest or whatever. Like, why would you equate you are supposed to be a representation, which I know they're not. The Supreme Court ruled that they have no duty to protect, but it's literally their job to uphold the law. They are law enforcement.
Yeah.
Well, that's when you mess with one of them that has that, and you're like, "Hey, man, if I got to bury a body, will you help me?"
Yeah.
and if they say yeah, then you're like, "Well, please don't ever pull me over," But
because I mean that's just not. Those two things go together like oil and water.
Well, it'd almost be the same thing if somebody had a Batman logo, because technically Batman's a vigilante, or as Morgan Freeman said in Dark Knight, vigilante. But he's, either way you want to say it, I mean, he doesn't kill people. He should kill the Joker probably, but not anybody else. But like, he's still operating outside of the law, roughing people up, that sort of thing. Any of the heroes really are, just don't ban the Cobra logo. I'm just saying, don't ban.
I didn't realize this was going to take the turn that it has, but
what the funny thing is, it's okay. The funny thing is, like with Marvel, it's like during the pandemic, they got all worried about people using the Punisher logo for good or for bad or whatever. But like when stores are like going out of business and we don't know if we're going to have product, and you got guys like Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and Robert Kirkman are like, "Hey, we're putting out stuff. We want to support our retail partners. We want our fans to have something to do during this thing." You got CB Cebulski, the guy that runs Marvel, tweeting out places to do takeout in New York. I'm like, that's awesome, man. How's that help my business stay alive? Or my competition or anybody else? You guys aren't producing product. What's going on? You got Boom Studios is like, "Hey, here's what we're going to do when it starts back up." Rich, I always get his name mixed up. I think it's Rich Rossi is the way he just sold Boom, but he was coming out like, "Hey, here's what we need to do." Jim Lee, Diamond broke the contract. We're going to go get our books put out through somebody else. We got to get this stuff moving. But Marvel's like, "Oh yeah, here, go get sushi at Johnny's Sushi on 3rd Street in Broadway, next to Broadway." Like, what? Like, no, I want product to sell and entertain my customers so they don't go nuts being prisoners in their home. And
you need to. You have to have that escapism. You have to have that escapism. Going back to what you were saying about the Cobra logo, I did have a run-in with my job on that particular situation because we have to wear vests. At this point, we were wearing vests, and I sometimes wear my fandom on my T-shirt, and I had the Cobra logo under there.
How many pieces of flair do you wear?
Huh?
How many pieces of flair do you wear?
What do you mean?
From Office Space when she's did like when Jennifer Aniston's getting yelled at, she doesn't have enough pieces of flair, the buttons.
Oh no, I don't wear any buttons.
It's an Office Space joke. Sorry,
but they could see the logo, the Cobra logo. Like, you're not supposed to wear T-shirts that have insignias or mascots or this or that. And they equated it to, because people might take that the wrong way. And I'm like, this is a toy property logo from a cartoon in the 80s. I said, no one's going to take it the wrong way. So yeah, but just the same, we would prefer you didn't wear that T-shirt. I'm
you better watch out. They might pull in HR, might pull you in the office and be like, David, how do you feel about world domination? Is that something you think about a lot?
I feel great about it. I would love to be Dr. Doom.
That's funny, man. They're concerned about a Cobra.
But that was years ago. Now we have regular shirts. You can't wear logos anymore because we have shirts that we wear. But I just thought it was a funny thing where you said they'll start stopping us from wearing the Cobra logo, because that was the Cobra logo.
It's so funny.
Let's get back to G.I. Joe. Yay!
Now back to G.I. Joe.
So there was an announcement. Did you see the announcement Skybound made for their free comic book day? I showed you that preview last week, but then they made an announcement this week about that, and that it's going to be an event that is going to shake up all their titles, and it's going to involve all their titles. So I was kind of proven right by that because of that statement that they made. So what do you guys think they're gonna do? What is this crossover gonna be? Are we gonna get Snake Eyes finally? What's gonna happen here?
I think we might get Snake Eyes. I don't know when, but it might be that event.
That'll be the turning point against Cobra. Snake Eyes will show up and be like, I got this. And then be like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to talk. I think,
what do you
hope they have him talking.
I don't know any inside stuff because I haven't been on any calls, nor would I reveal it because we have to do confidential on that stuff.
Right, yeah.
My guess is it's going to lead to that second G.I. Joe team that Hawk alluded to at the end of the Energon one shot. Yeah, that's what I feel.
I think that is Risk's team.
You think so?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, you got Flint and Lady J are out there too, remember?
Yep.
Because they were involved.
You got Scarlet,
Jinx.
Well, who do you think's going to recruit the Arashikage first? Cobra, Duke's team, or another Joe team?
I think they're
all three.
I think they're all going to try.
Maybe we will have a storyline that involves both Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, and you don't know which side they're going to be on, and it'll be revealed at the end.
That might be the free comic book day thing. Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes ordeal.
Yeah, but if you're going to do the whole, you got to involve the Transformers, and the Snake Eyes Storm Shadow thing to me is almost too big for that. Like, you can't have any other stuff in it but that. Like, that would be like an ancillary thing. Like, here they are. But we've already seen Storm Shadow and kind of like what his motivation is.
That's true. You're right.
But we haven't seen Snake Eyes yet. But he's been referenced by Stalker, not by name. I think it was in the Duke miniseries when he takes Duke down or something. He's like, that's a move an old war buddy of mine taught me.
That's true.
And it's a martial arts move. So it's like he's probably out there somewhere.
Well, that means that they are referencing the Vietnam LERP team. Because Storm Shadow, Stalker, and Snake Eyes
it's not Vietnam.
But it's not Vietnam. What is it going to be? What time frame?
It's the regional conflict.
Yeah, this is all modern.
Yeah,
so I'm curious.
I just think that's kind of maybe, and it might be one of those things that maybe Snake Eyes has been in play the whole time, and we just hadn't seen him. Like he's something. Like, well, you think, well, yeah, like it could still, because like Stalker obviously knows a Colonel Hawk, and they seem like they had a rapport. And same thing with Rock and Roll. And then I'm kind of curious, like, what the history is with the Pit, because like if you remember in the Duke miniseries, they're using the Pit as a prison, but it was referenced that it was an old headquarters, and now they're using it as the headquarters again. So I'm like, was there maybe a G.I. Joe team before, and then something happened to them?
That's what I think. I
hope it's the adventure team. I hope it's the adventure team.
Oh, it'd be cool. They could bring all that stuff in, and I would love the Green Monster and all that stuff. that'd be awesome. Because it's its own. This is its own thing. It's so funny because I see. Do you guys ever look on those GiJoe Facebook groups? It's like a place of wonder and disappointment at the same time. And it's like somebody got on there and was like, "So is this GiJoe tie into the Real American Hero series?" And I'm thinking, like, man, if only we had like little. Well, my phone's being used as a camera. But like, if only we had like these little miniature computers in our pocket where we could look up for information.
Yeah, right.
Or like you're a comic book fan and you don't know this already. Like, no, it's its own thing. You know.
If you're not there, GI Joe Classified Marketplace is my group that I run with some good friends, and then I also help run several other groups.
Well, it's funny because those groups will like. I'm looking for a GI Joe part. Like they'll say, "Does anybody know what this goes to?" And then like you'll have people like, "I think it's a tank tread," or "I think it's this," and then it's like, well, it's obviously the prison from the headquarters that you can easily go on yojo.com and find.
But Dan, the problem with things like this is we've got to be patient with these people because we were these people at some point. I would like to think that we were like this at some point.
I was never these people.
No, well,
I have so much useless GI Joe knowledge in my head that finally people are like, you were born to have a comic and toy store.
But we want the new people to come in and feel welcome.
Oh, these aren't new people. These are old people saying this. Yeah, they're
the new people are in the classified groups.
Yeah, the new people are. So case in point, I got a guy that I'm friends with, been friends with for years, and we got him into classified, and he's getting the GI Joe comics, and he'll ask questions, and he's like, I don't want to sound stupid. Like, no, dude, you're new to this. He didn't think that Billy was a real thing. Like he made fun of us that we were.
Well,
he's like,
a real thing.
Yeah, he was like, everybody's got code. He's like Blowtorch, Buzzer, Duke, and Billy, and I'm like, no, it's the commander's sign. And then he looked it up, and he's like, oh, yeah, I guess I owe you guys a coffee or something. But but like guys like that, it's like, yeah, I don't expect him to know what this is, right? But like I'm talking about guys that like grew up in the era we grew up in, that were fans or say they're fans, and they don't know like what's the Saw Viper or what's a.
I'm going to put myself on the line here. I'm going to take the sword for this little bit of the discussion. There is a point when I was coming back into the GI Joe fandom in 2010, my first Joe Con, I realized there was a convention for GI Joe that I never realized until then. And there was an ad in the back of Heroes magazine, Toy Fair magazine, Heroes, Toy Fair magazine, or whatever it is, Wizard or Heroes. And I came and there was a lot of new stuff that I didn't know. And to this day, I probably could not define which version of the Ninja Viper's sword was the first version, or which version of Budo's swords are the original version. I do not know all this equipment that these characters come with. I will admit that. And there are people in the community that know this. They're like, oh, that's just David. He doesn't know the equipment. So there's going to be parts of this brand that not everybody's going to know. And it's been 15 years since I joined this community, and I still 100% cannot define every piece of weaponry that comes with every figure. I know some better than I did, but it's just part of this community that not everybody's going to know everything. There's lots of people that don't know a lot about the Larry Hama comics, and I'm very glad to talk to them and help them out and teach them and things like that. So I feel that we should be a little bit more open to people.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying not to be, but it's just kind of I'm talking about like if you look at those groups, I don't really participate in those groups because, like I say, it's a place of wonder and disappointment at the same time. Because I think some of the fandoms are really tough to be a part of, like because like we had the convention yesterday and it was wonderful, but like some of the people online, like yeah, I mean my friend I won't name him to embarrass him, but like I wouldn't expect him to know what that is, but like 82 to like 86, I probably know all the pieces and parts. Well, not all the pieces and parts, just because that's how my memory works. But like yeah, I'm not going to fault somebody, but like people like. I'm talking about people like in the know will like, hey, what's this part go to? The answer would be, oh, hey, David, it goes to the prison cell in the headquarters. Well, there's people that be on these groups that be like, you dummy, you don't know, and like, how do you not know this? You call yourself a fan? It's like, like you're just saying, be nice to people. Like that's how you grow the group and the hobby. And it's just it's nutty. But then there's people that like I know people that think they're the biggest GI Joe fan, and like, what's your favorite episode of the cartoon? Oh, there was a cartoon,
Right.
and it's like, well, I don't expect you to know like the voice actors' names and the dialogue, and but yeah, it's kind of
You should know that.
like
Yeah.
how many tires are on a car? Like usually four, and I don't know anything about cars. I know that they have an engine, you put gas in it, not in the engine, in the car, and then they have four wheels, and that's somehow it all works, by magic, I guess.
Well, you can. There's a car that has 3 wheels. It's called the Stun.
Yeah.
Or the Dreadnought trike.
Yeah.
That's a
so we just tie it right back to GI Joe. It's amazing. Everybody will get to this point one day, I promise you.
It's going to make this obsolete if that comes to that point.
No, there's some like you were talking about the swords and stuff. I'll admit, like when I guess it was about 2001 when the Devil's Due GI Joe came out, and everybody was kind of getting back into it, and I was like, oh, got toys coming back out. This is great. And then people are talking about like Ice Cream Trooper, and I'm like, what in the blue hell are you talking about? Well, stop trolling. And they're like, no, it's a thing. And I'm like, no, it's not. I was like, I was the biggest GI Joe fan, blah blah. And they're like, yeah, this is him right here. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was after I got out of it. Never mind. But yeah, those swords and stuff, man. GiJoe.com is a great place to figure that stuff out.
That's why I buy a lot of guides because I want to. I can
82 and 86, I got you. Show me the piece and I'll tell you where it goes. Beyond that, I'm like, yeah, hold on a second. Oh, yeah,
I heard that
goes
we
to
are
this
only going to have GiJoe.com until July.
Wow, it's finally collapsing, huh?
Did somebody
that's
bought
what I
it?
heard. Don't hold me to that.
Did somebody buy it to shut it down or something?
Company.
Wow.
It's just an ad farming company that owns it.
Oh gosh.
How did that even happen?
Someone
I'm kind of ignorant on that story. Like someone sold the site, so they would the people that bought it are just going to shut it down.
No one's been contributing to it. It's been deteriorating, and no one's been taking care of it. So It's like crap now.
The company that owns it, the company that bought it, is just an ad farming company. They don't maintain websites. They buy websites that are kind of defunct, and they just sell ads on them and generate revenue from it until it's done. And I have heard that GiJoe.com is actually going to be going down sometime in July. Don't hold me to that. That's not gospel. I'm not saying that as a fact. That's literally just what I heard. It's just at this point, it's only rumor.
Well, anybody that's watching this, Terry, I recommend 3D Joes. That is going to be forever, and everybody is contributing to making that successful, adding parts to it, adding this. Carson does a great job with it, but he can't do every era, every type of thing on it. But it is all inclusive: comics, animation, art, toys, design. Everything is going to be there. So that's where I recommend you go.
That's a good idea, and I like that all that stuff's archived. Like the Art of GI Joe, those books are amazing. At least the ones I have. I love looking through those.
We're very blessed. We've got
a buddy of mine has them and absolutely loves them.
We're very blessed in this community that we have the people that have archived this brand to the extent because 15 years ago there was zilch. Hasbro was doing diddly squat with GI Joe when it comes to archiving. We had the Belomo book and we had a couple of little kitty books, and that was about all we had. Transformers, there was lots of books, tons of books.
You think that Hasbro would? I mean, it'd be such a rudimentary thing to do, and like easy to like lease out. Like, hey, we want you to archive the GI Joe stuff. We'll give you access to the files and preserve it.
No, all these guys have done it, and it's been like pulling teeth to do it. But Dan Klingsmith's 15 volumes, Carson's omnibus, and then his art series of books, 6 books, the Belomo book, the Kavanaugh series of guides and book, What else is there? Even James DeSimone in the 90s did it. And there's the comic book archives, but After Action Report guys. I'm trying to what else is there?
Speaking of all that, it made me think of two things I don't want to forget. One, if you ever looked up the Larry Hama Bench Press Comics G.I. Joe revival, there's about 5 pages or maybe 4 pages. Ron Lim does the art and Larry writes it, and it takes place like I think it was going to like come out in 1999 or 1998. And if you Google it, you can find the pages, and it's basically like Hawk is at the pit after they fold up the flag and all that like 5 years later or something, and then like here comes the tomahawk and it's got like 14 Joes on it, and that's going to be your team. And it was like a streamlined team that Larry was going to write. He doesn't remember a lot about it because I kind of asked him about it before because it just sounded neat. Forget like what was going on with Cobra. Like Cobra Commander was in hiding. Did Baroness and Destro were together. The twins were legit or something. I can't remember, but it sounded really cool. And then on the archive stuff, I was watching an It's Chad video where they were talking about play sets in figures or whatever. And they had one episode was about the Cobra Island playset. Yeah. Because 85 you had the flag, 86 you had the Cobra Terradrome, 87 you had the Defiant and or the tackle box, and then 88 was going to be Cobra Island.
Yeah.
And like just the schematic that they had, the thing looked amazing. Like that would be a truly worthwhile HasLab to do, because it was like a big mountain. The top opens up and folds down, and that top part's a helipad. It's 3 stories of a base, and then like each layer of the mountain folds down. It's like an island, and like guns and weapons, and it just looked amazing. And the guy that designed it had never even seen like what Cobra Island looked like, but it was just like it just looked cool. That I'm like, yeah, that'd be an awesome HasLab. But just like stuff like that, like and like stuff that Larry's Fury Force that he was going to do, like the little sketch of the characters just looks neat. You can kind of tell like, okay, that turned into Snake Eyes and that probably turned into Scarlet. But like even that, stuff like that's really cool.
There was another weird miniseries that Larry was working on. I don't think it was Fury Force, but it was something to do with something 5 or whatever. That he took a lot of his cues for G.I. Joe from, and Tim Finn has it on his Real American blog book. And he talks about it, Talking Joe, Tim Finn, and he talks about this like Hero 5 or whatever it was that Larry took a lot of the cues. That sounds
familiar.
Yeah, he grabbed a lot of cues for G.I. Joe.
Have you ever read?
So real. So you're like, if you read this, you're like, holy crap, that's what he did here. Holy crap, that's what he did here. It was like all these things that he took to put into G.I. Joe. So Larry does a lot of that sort of stuff.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't want to see another HasLab for O-ring stuff. I think that if this is a take that a lot of people disagree with because they have problems with Super 7 or whatever, but I would much rather see Super 7 start making play sets for their O-ring line than to see Hasbro do something like they did with the Sky Striker again. Because the quality of the Super 7 stuff is great. Everything that I've seen, everything that I've handled and looked at, it's all been great. The only problems that I've seen people post is a rivet crimp issue with the twins. And no, that shouldn't be happening, especially with the price point. But at the same time, you're talking about a mass-produced toy line. There's going to be problems every now and then that pop up. And I just don't really want to see Hasbro do something like that. Do something like they did with the Sky Striker again. The Sky Striker wasn't that bad, but dude, the Sky Striker is 100% something that could have been done at retail.
Absolutely.
And just throwing the extra figures in at the end for the hell of it to get it pushed up to that next tier. Man, I do not personally believe that G.I. Joe stuff has the level of support that something like Classified has. It just doesn't have it. It's been proven time and time again that it does not have the same level of support. Dude, they post a classified HasLab, and that thing is funded within a day.
Yeah, within a
couple
day.
of things real quick before I forget. Have either of you ever read Larry Hama's Nth Man Ultimate Ninja?
Yeah, I have the complete series.
No,
That's an amazing series. That's feels like almost like an older Snake Eyes type character. Terry, you need to find that. They don't have it in a collected edition. They should. And I'd love to see like a remake of that or something, like an ultimate version of it. That thing was amazing. Supposedly, the Super 7, that was in their mission statement with getting the GiJoe license, that they were going to do O-rings and to do vehicles and play sets, which I love. I like O-rings, but I like to recard them and hang them up. I like the modern sculpt figures to open up and display, but I'm cool with them doing vehicles and play sets because the modern will fit with that. And then to answer or to respond to what you were saying, Terry, I think if Hasbro's sole focus was 4-inch GI Joes, it'd be a different story. But it's obviously 6-inch is their focus, which is cool. And if someone else wants to do 4-inch, I'll support that. I'll support both. I can't do that with every hobby or toy line I like, but GI Joe I will best I can.
Well, man,
as long as I can afford to.
The mothership from Super 7.
I think they overstepped on that.
I think so too.
I think that they tried to go a little big before they really drove something home.
Yeah.
The price point wasn't there. The shipping cost was outrageous.
Yeah.
And I just don't I had planned on buying at least a couple of them.
I did too.
How would you display that though? Would you put it, because like if you were going to display it, it almost like you'd have to hang it up. So then you don't really get to see the inside of it.
It would have to hang for me.
Yeah. I didn't have the space to hang it or display it. I was going to keep it in the box, but I wanted to support it. But I
wanted to support it because I believed in the project they were making.
Yeah. Do you guys remember the Cobra Temple fiasco a few years back?
Yeah.
Yes. Don't even go there. I don't even want to talk about that individual. Don't even give him credence. I do want to talk about
He's still around?
He is around. I'm not going to go
into it. Yes.
Let's keep away from that.
I redid my entire toy room for that damn thing.
I've got the files for it.
Oh, there you go.
I want to talk about the Aspid. Now, if you've ever seen any of my interviews with Brian Flynn, I've alluded to him making the Aspid 3 times on 3 different interviews. And it is the #1 vehicle that every community of G.I. Joe, barring the 12-inch, could use for a vehicle.
Could you tell everybody what that is for the people that don't know?
What?
In the audience?
Oh, the Aspid, it's a Cobra helicopter that is in the comics. It's in the cartoon. It's in a lot of extra media. It's a bluish purple helicopter that carries like loads of stuff, either a HISS tank or packages or whatever it is. But it's a Cobra helicopter. But it could fit O-ring. It could fit reaction. It could fit 4-inch. It could fit reaction plus. It covers all these fandoms. You would sell 1 million, 2, 4, 10 million of these helicopters if you did it right and you made sure that it covered all these versions of the brand.
Do you guys remember SK Omega?
No.
It was a O-ring line that was going to come out. I think it was like circa 2010, and they had a helicopter like that, and they had this really cool playset called the Hive. The figures looked okay. The vehicles and playset, the playset looked amazing because it looked like the inside of what you would imagine the G.I. Joe headquarters or a Cobra headquarters would look like. Like the guy on like the scaffolding, like with the stick, looking at the monitor, control panels, seats. But they had the helicopter that was like that, where it had the cargo portion that you could drop off, and then like you could maybe pick up a tank or a Jeep that they were making.
But that's
they never came out. I think they might have got
cease and desist or something.
Yeah, but they didn't copy anything. It was like I think one of the designers.
You'd be copying the military application of it only because no one's ever made that.
I think it was a funding issue, and because I think it was one of the designers for the Joe team at some point was one of the guys involved because they were O-ring construction, and like I said, the figures looked okay, but the vehicles were like, oh my god, this is amazing, like because they had that helicopter basically.
Well, but that is the avenue that Super 7 needs to go down, is that you can make it modular. Like I said, you can make a crane for his tank to go into it, or you can make a legitimate platform where the figures are in there shooting guns or whatever, like the Tomahawk section, or you can have a thing come down at the end for a Jeep or a motorcycle or some Cobra trouble bubble or something to come out of it. Or you could have a package loading mechanism to lift the packages up. All that stuff should be included. Have 2 seats in the front. Like I said, the section with the guns with seats on it and things like that. Make it like it should be. You know, Super 7 can do it. If they can make the mothership, they can make that.
Oh yeah, and I thought the mothership looked really cool, and I wanted one, but I'm like you guys. I think they kind of overshot that a bit, and I feel like, to me, I was like logistically, like, how do I display this?
Yeah.
Because to me, like, you'd want to put it up high so you can see the facade of it, but then also you want to be able to see the inside of it, and like guys, scurrying about, doing stuff.
I think they did it too soon. I think we should have gotten the O-rings first. I think we should have did this, build up and really do a good job, tease it at San Diego Con, do it next year.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I think people would have been ready for it then.
Absolutely.
I think once a few waves of the O-ring figures come out, I think that they might be able to pull off something like the mothership. Actually, what I would really like to do is get up with Brian Flynn and talk to him, and maybe have him on for a live stream and get some whatever insight he's able to give into what happened originally with O-ring versus reaction and the mothership, and maybe get his point of view on some of that stuff.
That'd be pretty cool.
He has spoken about it. I can give you a little bit of what he said. To me and a couple other people. I keep a real close eye on Super 7 and interviews with Brian Flynn just to see. But he has said that initially he wanted the O-ring license. That was what they wanted. They had always wanted that. But Hasbro was like, well, that's our baby. That's really ours. We don't really
Why would we have somebody else do something we can do ourselves? Yet they kind of proved that they
don't want to
pull it off.
Right. And that's when he was doing a good job with Ultimates and Reaction and the licensing, and he had goodwill with them. And after the whole thing with the mothership, they were ready. They were like, okay, we feel you can do this. You've proven it. We think you have good faith. I think it's in good hands. We don't feel nervous about it. But even then, they were watching what he was doing. And so he did it. But the mothership was they thought we were ready. They saw people paying the big bucks for the hiss. They saw people doing the big bucks for the Dragonfly and so on. They thought they had that audience, but the audience, I don't think, was ready.
Yeah, I don't think the audience was ready at all, man. It was. I think that it was a bad time to put that out.
There was too much at that point going on. They were trying to do the Thundercats lair. There was Ghostbusters thing going on, the backpack at the same time. There was 3 or 4 crowdfunding things over that fall that they were trying to do the mothership. And I think people were stretched too thin too, as well.
Yeah,
money. The whole thing with COVID, people were spending money like hand over fist during COVID, but then they had to start pinching pennies as the years went by.
They had to start paying on those credit cards is what happened.
So, and that was a problem as well. So there was 3 or 4 factors that played into that mothership thing. And they weren't always all Super 7. Some of them were people's personal issues and so on. And it happened. It is what it is. I hope maybe they'll try it again down the road because I would like to get it.
You know what's funny is I heard a lot of people griping and bitching about that thing. And I'm like, why? It looks cool.
No,
And
it
I'm
was
like,
phenomenal.
well, no one asked for
Because on
this.
social media, people are going to gripe and bitch about anything and everything
It's like,
that comes out. It doesn't
no
matter
one,
what it is.
no
It
one,
doesn't matter if they're part of the fandom.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The fans are their own worst enemies.
Again, those groups can be joyous and depressing at the same time.
The
But like,
naysayers, I ignore them.
It's just like a lot of people are griping about it. Like, well, no one asked for this. Well, no one asked for GI Joe in 1982, but they gave it to us. And we loved it. You know,
Right. Nobody
I
asked
used
for
to have
this.
a guy. I used to have a guy that would come
that
into
we
the
should only
store.
get toys that you ask for?
Well,
But that's the whole classified thing. No one wanted classified. They tried several times to do 6-inch scale GI Joe. Daryl DePriest has talked about Bobby Vala was on it before they did the current, and no one even really cared for it initially when those first 2 waves came out. It's just when they started reverting back to the 80s versions is when it.
Well, part of that is because Hasbro won't put out a toy line unless they have a media property. So the media property for classified was that video game that didn't do so well. Right. That's what, because all the figures are patterned off that video game.
The video game sucked.
I never got to play it. I never found it.
I'll give it to you to play.
No, that's okay. I don't have time. But
I got stuck in the training room. I still haven't gotten out of it.
The game bombed, but the figures did well. I mean, I sold out of those, and everybody thought they were cool. And then they were like, "Hey, look, these are selling. Can we continue to make these?" And they're like, "Yeah." So they leave the YouTube cartoon on, or the cartoon on YouTube. That's literally what they consider the media property. Yeah. The cartoon from 40 years ago, which is cool. I love it. But but then that's why we start to get the stuff that we want, because the guys were like, "Okay, we have to do it this way." But now that it's successful, we can start to like, okay, let's move and get, hey, look, there's Recondo. Hey, there's Spirit. There's, Duke. And they're like, look, they sell. But G.I. Joe always sells. That's the thing that's how many times has it saved Hasbro? With Hasbro, they may or may not.
Times over.
They may or may not renew the Disney license, because people are always telling me, like, I don't understand why they don't do the Cantina creatures in Black Series, because the line could go for years. I'm like, because Disney will not let them. Disney, one, has to pay a royalty to Lucas on anything he created, even though he sold it. It's still part of the deal. And then two, they're obviously going to promote the stuff they create, and Hasbro has zero control over that. They have to make product or they get fined, and I think to renew the license is something like $300 million. And so it's kind of like, well, do you keep, putting new product into Ollie's, or do you, kind of cut your loss and be like, maybe Jax or somebody else, Mattel, should take on Star Wars and Marvel, and then the fans kind of get reinvigorated, like, oh, cool, and I can collect it all over again. I like the way this company's doing this. Because you think you're going to get good-looking figures no matter what.
Putting product into Ollie's comes down to the abysmal distribution by the retailers that are buying in. Because let's face it, guys, I mean, like, you and I are not Hasbro's customers. Hasbro's customers are Target, Walmart, and other big retailers.
Yep, you're right.
So when those retailers have product that comes into their distribution centers that never goes to store shelves, and then they need space, so they just liquidate it. They liquidate that product straight out to closeout stores or liquidation stores.
And Hasbro has to eat the subsidy for that.
Yeah, Ollie's and Ross.
Well, I will disagree with you on one thing. Hasbro knows that we are their customer, and they don't like that.
We're the end user, yeah.
Yeah, they don't like that. And as we talked about before, they should look at it as creating generational customers.
Yes.
Because that's what I have at my store. I have people that their dad was a customer. Now the son's grown up and he's bringing his kid in. You create generational customers. And there's nothing wrong if, to me, like, money's money. If it's coming from a 10-year-old or a 50-year-old, as long as it's, it is not fake and it pays the bills, or, the card goes through, so to speak. But it's like, I think you can serve two masters, kids and adults, and they just have to have the focus and the ingenuity to do it, because they make really great product.
Here's a little bit of insight as to what Hasbro is doing right now. We have our annual convention twice a year. The spring and summer one is coming up, and I've reached out to the Hasbro buyer. Hey, you're going to this event. I look forward to seeing you there. No, I'm not going. The only thing Hasbro has to represent at the company that I work for, people that know me know the company that I work for. The only thing they're going to have to represent Hasbro at this event, and it's the largest retail company in the world, is the company I work for. And the only thing they're going to have representing Hasbro is Peppa the Pig.
That's unfortunate.
That tells you where Hasbro is.
I just think it's a lack of direction and lack of leadership. You know, like we were talking about, I think it was Terry and I were talking about this. David, I don't know if you were in on this conversation. There was the whole Elon Musk saying I'm going to buy Hasbro comment.
I hope he does.
I think it'd be great. And I tweeted him and I was like, if you do, I have a plan for Boys Division.
Yeah.
And one of the ideas I had. What's that?
I said, if there is a toys division, we know.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Chris Cox wants it to be a gaming company.
Yeah.
Look, they just killed off the Asia version of Hasbro Pulse. So
yeah.
Well, he's content to license it out or just scrap it. And I'm like, why would you scrap stuff that can make you money? But anyway, I probably would move their headquarters out of Rhode Island. It'd be in a more business conducive state.
Yeah.
So wherever the headquarters.
Go to my home city.
What's that?
Where my home city is? Boston. I would love it to be in Boston.
Or that. But we would have this big entryway in this hallway. And I would have the hallway be like littered with like plaques, busts, portraits of anybody. Like, say, David, you were like a guy that invented Play-Doh. Your face would be up there. Terry, you're the guy that did
the Hall of Fame.
Nerf.
We just started that, right?
And then and you'd have like Peter Cullen, Frank Welker, Chris Latta, all that stuff, right? And I would have every week all my toy teams would have to go through that hallway, look at all those great men and women, and like get inspiration. Now go make toys that people are going to talk about 40 years from now, and let's make money. What got me on the Jordan comment was from this conversation with somebody.
But
they tried
doing that. They're doing the Hall of Fame now, so we're going to get to that point.
Oh, they are?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
They did it at I believe it was the Terry, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it the Hasbro Pulse event at San Diego Comic-Con, or was it the Hasbro Pulse event in September?
No, they did. I think it was San Diego. You're right. Yeah. San Diego, they did something. But I'm talking about in their corporate, where like your teams go through it every week and have to look at these people and get inspiration.
Where do you think they're going to put this? Where do you think they're going to put the Hall of Fame? They're going to put it someplace.
He's talking about at the corporate office.
Yeah, I'm talking about like
it there. They've got to be
I'm not necessarily talking about something for like people off the street to see. I'm talking about if I was running Hasbro, I would want something for my teams to go through every week, every Monday. You got David, Terry, take your teams, walk through this hall, see the Hassenfeld brothers, Mr. Hassenfeld, see Don Levine, see Kirk Bazingian, Larry Hama, all this stuff. Anybody that had anything to do with our success, and the Kenner stuff, everything. And like draw inspiration from that. Go to your teams and create me something that we can make, not only make money, but create generational customers. And see, the thing is, when I brought up the Michael Jordan thing, I was telling somebody the speech I would give to all the Hasbro people. And I would have Bobby Valla as a guest. And I'd be like, who is the guy that took the arrow away from Yondu? Raise your hand. You're fired. Out of here. You know, and who's the people that sold E1 and we lost $3.5 billion. All right, you're all out of here too. It'd be like Joe Clark on Lean on Me. These are all my bad students. You're all expelled. You know, get them out of here. You know, but
look at this,
but
Dan. Hold on just a minute.
yeah,
When it comes to corporate level decision making, there is risk when it comes to that level of money and that level of business. They're gonna do stuff like even Golden brought in the film industry and did the film branch of Hasbro. That didn't work either, and he's one of the most successful executives at Hasbro.
no, I get that.
I think he did a great job.
I
But
totally
he made
get
a bad
that.
decision too.
That when you make publicly as a stockholder, when you make a statement that says we lost $3.5 billion, but we're in a more profitable and better place financially, I'm saying no, you're not. You lost $3.5 billion, and their sole concern is popping the stock every quarter, whereas their sole concern should be creating product that grows the stock because it's now below $60, and there for about 3 or 4 months it was 62, 66, 61, 64 because I have stock, and it's like I want it to be 120. I want it to be $200 a share. And like so, the thing with Jordan was Jordan didn't get in there like I'm gonna play ball to make money. I'm gonna play ball because I have a talent and I'm gonna be the best there is. And because he did it for those reasons, I'm not saying I'm a business owner. Yeah, you want to make money, obviously, but like because he did it for the right reasons, the money came. So if we put out a good product and support, like I had this idea that we would have a Hasbro retail kit. So like say Terry was owned my store. It wasn't me. I was Hasbro and Terry was my store. Hey Terry, you want to carry Hasbro product? Yeah. All right, well here's how much you're gonna spend. And we want to have a whole section like from girl stuff, Play-Doh, Nerf, GiJoe, Transformers, and our licensed stuff like Star Wars and Marvel. And then you tell me in 90 days what sold best for you. Hey, Play-Doh, GiJoe, and Transformers. Boom. Let's get you more of that.
Yeah, see, that makes a lot of sense, man. Like just doing actual real market research with retailers to find out exactly what they're selling.
And I get the whole
they do that. I have a Hasbro buyer that's just for my company. He only buys toys for my company. That is all he does at Hasbro. That's his entire job. And we have all the numbers to prove to him what's selling, what's not selling, what is the better toy, what is the least better toy. I'll give you an example of a toy that they have been trying to re-engineer. They've taken it apart because they don't know how that we made this toy. My company made it, and they're trying to figure out how we made it for $5. A lightsaber sword, not a lightsaber, but a light sword for $5, and you press a button, it lights up, becomes green, it makes noise for $5, right? We sell billions of these swords all over the world, right? Hasbro is trying to figure out how we created that sword for $5 and are selling that many units. Trust me, we are all over this.
But Hasbro can't figure it out.
And I think, and to your point about the E1 and all that, excuse me, I'm all about taking chances, but like you have to, like, okay, we're gonna buy this car. Oh, I don't like the way I rode. Let's sell it. Like you got to give it time, like because I understand what they were trying to do, but it's like they're not going to be Marvel Studios because everyone's trying to be Marvel Studios. That's why Disney bought Marvel Studios so they could be Marvel Studios. But like Marvel had a 60-year history of a shared universe. DC Comics has a 60, 70-year history of a shared universe. Like everybody and their mother thinks that's what they're going to do. And it's like, that was part of the thing because they wanted to have this studio. And I'm not opposed to that. I think they could have done it in-house and produced their stuff, but you have to know what you're doing. And you also have to know what you don't know and get in the people that know those things.
And that's the thing. A corporation the size of, let's go with my company again. The corporation the size of my company has got to work on multiple levels and multiple avenues. We can look at the profitability in one avenue. We could also look at the risk of another avenue. We try to do clinics in our establishments. We spent millions of dollars getting doctors and nurses and the equipment and all this stuff. And something happened, and that entire endeavor collapsed. All that money went away. But if we didn't try that, we wouldn't have known that it wasn't going to succeed till we gave it the chance. We test stuff. We go through all these levels to make sure this will work before we implement it in our establishments. And we have built probably 500 clinics in established locations before something happened and we realized this was not going to work. But all that money that we went to try that right down the toilet. But we have to try that stuff.
Now
I'm 5 minutes, guys.
I'm super intrigued to know what company you work for. You make laser swords and clinics. And my brain is like, so Kentuckiana Winterfest.
Yep.
How was the show for you, Terry? David, you need to come up for that. You need to come up for the one in the summer.
I've been to the summer one twice.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay, well, come this year too.
Okay.
So I had a blast, man. It was a great time. It always is. I absolutely love that show. I love setting up, selling toys, talking to people, seeing friends that I only get to see 1, maybe 2 times a year. It was an overall great time. My wife always comes with me when she can, and it's just, she even enjoys coming to these shows. And we go out and have dinner with some people from the show and whatnot afterwards. And it's just a really, really good time. It's a small show put on by somebody that says, I wanted to make a show that is something I would want to go to, something I would want to attend, not just set up and sell at. But it's about a whole lot more than just selling toys. It's about the camaraderie, it's about the friendships, and it's about the real base community aspect of it.
I loved it this year. I loved it, and found some cool stuff. Talked to a lot of people. It's funny, like my best friend, I didn't think he was going to make it. He ended up showing up later. We usually start walking the aisles together, and I get drug away like a politician, shaking hands and kissing babies. Apparently, there was a fake baby at the show this year.
Oh, did that guy bring that baby again this year? He brought it to the summer fest. Man, was that realistic?
Yeah,
so real.
I was like, I think I have seen a picture of it, and I was like, that's not real. And I was like, so some people were literally kissing babies, I guess, fake ones.
Yeah.
Because I thought
I was creeped out by it.
I was like,
did the Tesla saw that baby last year, Terry?
I didn't see it.
Oh wow.
I was wondering if the Tesla robots had made it and created a baby. They went from pouring drinks for people, and now they're creating, producing offspring. But it was a great show, and there's some big bald guy that made me buy a bunch of stuff at his booth. I won't say his name, but he did give me a really, really good deal on what I got, and appreciate it. And no, it was a cool time, and it's cool. It's neat because there's something about GiJoe that it's truly an American. I mean, everyone's invited around the world to love this, but it's a truly American thing that we get to experience. There's a lot of camaraderie because when it gets down to it, any one of us could be a GiJoe.
Right.
Because it's impossible to be a robot or Superman or an X-Man, but any guy, any woman could be a GiJoe. And so everyone has the ones that you gravitate towards that is who you want to be, who's like you, all that sort of thing. And it's just neat when you go down the aisles and you glance over and you see somebody you kind of know or you do know, and they just smile at you because they're having fun, and or they got their kid with them and their kid's all into it too. And it's like the cycle is complete, man. It's such a good thing. And and great dealers like Terry and all the other ones. And I told the show promoter that I feel like he's this close to the summer, because we're making plans for the summer show with potentially bringing some guests down, and that he's this close to the Kentuckiana GiJoe show being in the same breath as Joe Fest or Joe Lanta. I just feel it's this close, but it doesn't have that, this is so overwhelming. It's got a more intimate feel, and it does have an intimate
feel, and I like the fact
fun.
that it has that intimate feel.
It's just a lot of fun, and yesterday was a very good day.
I liken it to playing live music. I always enjoy going to concerts or seeing shows that have smaller venues in a more intimate setting, and that's kind of what this is like for me.
I had a dilemma one year. Prince was coming to Louisville Palace. It was a surprise, but I was supposed to be out of town walking my sister down the aisle for her wedding. And it's like Prince or my sister's wedding. I'm like, now that I know, no, sorry, my sorry sister, but I think I would have gone with Prince since he's dead. But you know,
we're very lucky. We have a field of riches when it comes to this brand. Thankfully, there are a lot of really good events. I've been to a bunch of them, and I want to try to continue to going to Kentuckiana every summer. But it all comes down to logistics and money and stuff like that. But I'm glad you guys had a great time. The 2 times I've gone, it's been wonderful, and I see Terry there. I see a lot of people that I'm friends with and stuff like that. And I would love to go. It's just with my company, I cannot go at certain periods of time. I cannot leave my company. So I have to, fortunately, skip Winterfest. But, you know, I intend to go to the summer one again. We'll see how it works out.
Well, you just got to watch those laser swords in those clinics, man, you know. One thing I'd like to say is that, you know, we were kind of mentioning the Facebook groups and all that stuff and fandom and all that. With the passing of our friend Aaron at Roma Collectibles, I kind of hope that some of the infighting in some of the different factions of the community, like some groups don't like Bobby Vala, some groups like Bobby Vala and all that, that maybe we just all kind of like put all that to the side and just enjoy the hobby and enjoy what this guy's doing and this guy's doing. And hey, if you don't want to support him, give him a thumbs up or something, you know, like, hey, you know, not my cup of tea, but I wish you the best. It seems it's too easy. People want to tear stuff down. And because I talked to the people at Roma that were there at the show, and the guy was kind of teary eyed because he was really missing Aaron. And it's just like, man, life's too short. Let's just enjoy this stuff and have fun. You know, we don't need to fight over toys.
The infighting, I don't think will ever end.
I don't think so either, because there's things called Star Wars fans, and that kind of spills into everything. But.
Right.
Hey, can I let Joe Fan 84 know this is a jacket? It's from Graffiti Design, and it has the GiJoe #1 cover on the and stuff like that. And
that's pretty awesome.
So Graffiti Design makes some really cool jackets. You can go on their website. There you go.
All right, guys, let's call it a day.
Good to see you, Terry, as always.
Hey, this is wonderful. I love this. Yo,
Absolutely.
Joe. Yo, Joe.
You guys have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and watching the live stream. And be sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff, and check out our channels. See you guys.
Bye.